Howdy folks, welcome back to part 4 of my visit to the Fleet Air Arm Museum at Yeovilton in Somerset. And this is probably the part of the video that most people have been waiting for. This is the carrier flight deck experience, and well, trust me, this is gonna be worth it. This part of the museum simulates a visit to a working 1970s aircraft carrier flight deck. As such, it is a very noisy experience, so I apologise in advance for the quality of the sound. Completely 100% unavoidable, but I'm sure you'll agree it will be worth it. Now, as you can see, the carrier tours start every 5 minutes, and they begin with a helicopter ride to the flight deck of the carrier.
Who decided not to take the last helicopter?
Please board the helicopter.
We did.
The doors will close in 30 seconds.
Oof. This is the carrier experience. I have no idea, I'll find out afterwards, whether or not you can actually hear me over the noise inside this Wessex. But if you come to the Fleet Air Arm Museum for no other reason, come for the carrier experience. This is amazing.
Second warning, we are about to take off. Those not already aboard the helicopter, please return to the departure lounge and wait for the next flight.
Doors are going to be closing soon. There we go.
Speak of the devil.
Right, there's just a... You can't actually feel it obviously on the video, but the deck is vibrating with the movement of the rotor blades. Now what you're going to see as part of the carrier experience is a simulation of a night operating carrier in the late 1970s, operating jet aircraft at night. Not a lot to see right now as we're still en route in the Wessex to the carrier flight deck.
X-Ray Sierra Yankee Bravo, Fleet Westview, visual final.
Almost there, we're on final. Wait until you see what they've got in here.
Please leave the helicopter by the rear starboard door.
Here we go.
Please leave the helicopter by the rear starboard door.
Check this out.
Another helicopter is currently inbound and due to land shortly. I will be welcoming another group aboard to join you. Petty Officer Rickburn again. Can you please wait by the helicopter exit until everyone has disembarked? Here on the flight deck, we're due to launch a Phantom from one of the flight deck catapults up towards the bow. That's at the opposite end from where your helicopter lands.
Oh, Supermarine attacker. Obviously, de Havilland Vampire was used by the Navy as a fighter bomber. Back there, the Sea Vixen, which was strangely, if you look at the size of the two aircraft, that was the bomber and that was the fighter.
Move up now towards the bow, keeping the island on your right, and you'll get a great view of the whole thing.
And we're about to launch that Phantom.
Watch where you're going and don't run.
This is the McDonnell-Douglas Phantom, 30 tons of frontline fighter. With a top speed of 1,400 miles per hour, more than twice the speed of sound, at a rate of climb of 32,000 feet per minute, the Phantom can carry 4 Sparrow and 4 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles. Its job to protect the fleet and escort the buccaneers on their bombing sorties. And it's about to be made ready for a combat air patrol now.
Buzzard 1, start engines.
If necessary, a Phantom can be scrambled in less than 10 minutes, raised from below decks to the flight deck, wings unfolded, and away she'll go. Of course, getting that 30 tons of metal airborne is easier said than done. On land, the Phantom requires 2,000 meters of runway. On board, we have only 250 meters of flight deck, which is why we use an immensely powerful catapult. This catapult accelerates the aircraft to its takeoff speed of 150 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds over a distance of only 75 meters. Without it, well, let's just say we'd have one very wet Phantom. The man in charge of loading the catapult is the flight deck officer, the FDO. He's standing to the front of the aircraft, and the 2 men under the aircraft are his flight deck engineers. They're nicknamed Badgers, and you can see why, wearing those black and white waistcoats. There's so much noise on the flight deck that virtually the whole operation is carried out by a series of well-drilled hand signals, but it all runs like a well-oiled machine. It has to. The plane guard helicopter is in position. The Phantom pilot has received his briefing and been given his routing. In a few moments, you'll see the jet blast deflectors to the rear of the aircraft rise. They protect personnel and the flight deck itself from the heat and force of the engines. Up they go. The pilot carries out his final checks.
Oxygen connected and arm content to the green.
He sets the tailplane to takeoff position.
Stay away to 2 degrees now.
The Badgers fix the catapult stops to the underside of the aircraft. The catapult is tensioned.
Okay.
The pilot checks with FlyCo, the flight controller.
Flight button bottom 3 lines complete. Roger, Buzzard 1. Clear the takeoff on forward cat.
The pilot signals to FlyCo.
Launch Phantom.
The FDO signals the OK. And off she goes.
I just hope you got a sense of how impressive that was from the video. As standing 20 feet away from an actual F4 Phantom as they go through a mock takeoff like that. Really, this carrier experience is just amazing.
As you'll have gathered, the flight deck is quite an active place, not to say noisy. But it can get a lot busier than this, believe me. In a few minutes, we're due to recover a Buccaneer. If you've already seen the Buccaneer recovery, you can start your tour of the island whenever you're ready. You can see the entrance to the island, time to look at some of the aircraft parts on deck as you go. Buccaneer recovery due in 2 minutes.
But here is the Gannet. You can see the twin rotary props at the front there. Quite a large aircraft. This actually provided the fleet's airborne early warning throughout the 50s and 60s and 70s. Unfortunately, it was decommissioned just before the Falklands War, which meant that the fleet that sailed south actually operated without any kind of airborne early warning whatsoever, and had to rely exclusively on the radars of their warships. See the observer's dome up there. Right, the rest of the carrier experience actually takes part inside the carrier. The first thing I have to say, having served on board Royal Navy warships for 22 years, this is incredibly authentic.
Right, there's the green light. Would you please go through the fire door and into the MCO?
First thing I have to say, if this was an authentic warship, there'd be beer stowed under there. And the mess deck's a bit large. Let's go through to the MCO. Now, when I first joined the Royal Navy, I joined up as a radio operator.
We handle around 300 signals a day. We also use radio voice communications, of course. That's mostly handled by the aircraft direction room, which you'll see at the end of the tour in about 10 to 15 minutes' time.
Cleared the air move arrival signal to Yeovil, Norris. Thank you.
And this is where I would have worked.
The radio operator has just sent a signal to RNAS Yeovilton to confirm the arrival of your helicopter on board.
How many copies of this signal do we need?
Which one's that?
The one from Tide Spring confirming a rendezvous for rounds at 19:30.
Oh yes, we'll need 3, please. If you look at the clock, by the way, you'll see a piece of history. The 2 segments marked in red. In the old days, when signals were very busy, there had to be a way for emergency and distress signals to get through. The way we used to do it was every half hour, at the times marked on the clock there, we'd stop everything and listen. Now we have a special frequency, 500 kilohertz, which is used only for emergency signals and is recognised all over the world. Bit of an improvement. We'll move on now, up to the bridge.
Bearing in mind
Would
this
you
is a
please go
mock-up
through the door to the left, then straight ahead and up the stairs.
of an MCO from the 1970s. It wasn't that much more advanced when I joined in the late 90s. Sorry, late 80s. Things that you're seeing here, basically anything painted in red is used for firefighting. So you've got shut off in the event of fire here, crash stop for ventilation. Oh, and here's the bridge.
Now, the senior officer here is not, as you might have expected, the captain. It's the officer of the watch. During operations and most exercises, the captain is actually in the operations room because that's where he can get the quickest and most complete access to information.
Wheelhouse, bridge. Quartermaster on the wheel. Quartermaster on the wheel, sir. Course to stand 240 by Alpha Gyro. All engines are ahead. 160 revolution set. Very good.
The quartermaster is actually turning the wheel to change the ship's direction under the orders of the officer of the watch, of course. In fact, the quartermaster is below deck, so he can't see where he's going. He steers by compass.
Digits? Wheel mission, sir. Yeah, 254. Yeah, 254.
It's the
254.
The ship is on a scheduled course with scheduled destinations, but for each wave of launches and recoveries, she has to turn away from her plotted course to head into the wind, so that aircraft have enough headwind for takeoff and landing. We're just turning into the wind again for the next launches. You might remember I said earlier that we work flat out to minimise the time spent steaming straight into the wind, partly because of keeping to our schedule, but also, from an enemy point of view, the ship's a bit of a sitting duck during that time.
what are the overheads like, Eddie?
No, re-scrub.
Oh, bad news.
So will not be happy.
What they've done to furnish this place is that every time a ship decommissioned down in Portsmouth at Devonport, basically the museum staff ran down there and stole everything. For example, these Basker DC and FF, breathing apparatus, self-contained compressed air, damage control and firefighting. This is the equipment I trained on. Obviously they've replaced them nowadays with things called EDBAs, extended duration breathing apparatus, but the principle's the same. Everybody has to be trained in their use. And this looks like the ops room. So everybody wearing, well, you will when the lights come up, everybody wearing anti-flash.
Officer of watch. Steering designated time course 254.
Very good. Remain on the command open line.
Yes, sir.
Local ops spots. Confirm no ships in immediate vicinity.
This is Ops, the operations room, and at the centre of it all, as you can see, is the captain, keeping tabs on the whole evolution. The little room on the right is the Ops office, where the flying programmes are actually decided on, how many aircraft will be flying and when. In the Ops room here, the team are wearing their anti-flash gear as part of a war at sea exercise. As you heard, among many other things, they're keeping a watch on a surface plot, checking the positions of other shipping. This is vital, and the situation can change very fast. Occasionally, the plotters can even temporarily lose track of things. It's known as losing the plot.
The next section seems to be a damage control and repair party post, judging by all the timber.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, just while we're waiting for the green light to let us know the next area is clear for us to go through, I'd like to just mention the things you're not seeing. You're getting an idea of what goes on in the island here and on the flight deck, obviously, but that's just the most visible part. All of it is made possible by well over 2,500 other people who work on this ship, although you can't see any sign of them right now.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, sorry. I didn't notice you there.
Famous last words. That's one of the lads checking the pressure in the saltwater fire main. He's part of the 24-hour emergency team. Damage control of all sorts is vital on board. You can see various damage control equipment attached to bulkheads and so on. You can see some timbers. They're used for shoring up because timber is strong but flexible. As I was saying, at this very moment, on 10 decks below where you're standing, there are hundreds of people working in hangars, boiler rooms, offices, workshops. There are people cooking, cleaning, making shoes, eating, writing letters home, planning entertainments, filling teeth, painting, carrying out repairs and maintenance, and sleeping, ready to come on watch later today or tonight. Because the carrier lives a 24-hour life. She operates at all times in all weathers. Right, we can carry on. Through the door ahead, please.
Fine summer's day with the Azores high covering the UK. Should be no problem
You
with
can
travel on
see
this.
just basic firefighting stuff. For example, if there's a fire in the galley, somebody would know that this is where they would have to
Any
come
questions?
to isolate
No.
electrical power
Very
to
good.
the galley
Bring up your
in
individual
the event of a
briefings.
fire. You've got more timber here used for shoring up bulkheads. Oh, they want us to move through to the next part. Through here we've got what they call a through bulkhead connection. There's a fire on the other side of that door. Obviously this door consists of a smoke boundary, so you can set your hoses to go through the bulkhead directly just by clipping them into here without having to run hoses through doors which you can shut to keep the smoke sealed in.
The aircrew refreshment bar. There are 7 galleys on board. This one is for aircrew who miss out on meal times in their mess. They can get a reasonable snack to keep them going.
I work there.
This is where Eddie used to work, the Naffy
While on
shop.
the subject of food, by the way, in a year, the alcohol chefs prepare about 450 tons of bread, 225 tons of meat,
And a little shorter.
4 miles of sausages.
How about one of my special omelets?
This is the galley. But Eddie's
Have your attention, ladies and gentlemen. I'll explain where we are shortly, but right now we've got a phantom pilot who has a problem. He can't deploy his tail hook, which means he can't use the rest of us.
3 negative tail hook, declaring a pan.
The aircraft can't land without its hook down. The deck's far too short, and there's nowhere else to go, so the emergency procedures have to work. Otherwise, we're facing a wrecked aircraft, crew dead or injured, deck unavailable for other aircraft to land.
You hear that? Prepare for a precautionary landing on the flight deck. Assume NBCD Stage 2, condition Yankee. Close all watertight doors, Juliet section to the stern. 2 deck and above.
Out on the flight deck, they're about to rig the emergency barrier, which is, I'll try and show you what. Yes, the crew are there, you can see. They're heading for the stowage lockers to get the barrier and fit it to the hydraulic arms that will raise it into position. And there's a second element as well, an energy absorbing pack. You can see it being positioned by the forklift there. Emergency crews and SAR Helo standing by, of course. And the rest of the crew all clear the deck.
No smoking or naked lights throughout the ship. Air emergency party muster abreast the ACR. Ship's emergency party muster in Bravo hangar. Ventilation party muster in 4 mic.
The pilot, of course, will keep trying to deploy the hook. If he can't, everything's ready. I'll keep you posted, of course, on what happens. Now, this is ADR, the Aircraft Direction Room, and it's a contact point for each aircraft throughout its mission, except in the immediate vicinity of the carrier when FlyCo takes over. This is the focal point for all radio signals, just as the MCO is for all non-radio signals. Incidentally, you can see information being written up on that screen there. It's transparent so that everybody can see the info immediately without having to peer around the chap who's writing. But the result is, obviously, he has to learn to write backwards. He can pick up some funny old skills.
This is actually a big elevator. Wow. And there's the restoration workshop, which you saw in an earlier video with the Japanese suicide rocket plane, the Oka. Wow.
So hopefully you've been impressed with the whole carrier experience in Hall 3 here at the Fleet Air Arm Museum. But trust me when I tell you, the whole sight and sound that you've seen in a video on YouTube just doesn't even begin to do it justice. You're only getting a small fraction of what you can see and hear when you're walking around that mock flight deck and bridge island of a working carrier from the 1970s in the Royal Navy. The feel, the smell, just the whole package. If you get half the chance to come to the Fleet Air Arm Museum here at Yeovilton in Somerset, get yourself through that carrier experience, because I've been to a lot of museums, as those of you who are following my videos on YouTube will undoubtedly be aware, and that is by far the most impressive thing I have ever seen in any museum I've visited yet. I am breathless with anticipation that future museum visits are going to be able to top that, but I'm not confident that they're going to manage it. If for no other reason, and there are plenty of other reasons why you would want to come to see the Fleet Air Arm Museum, as you've seen in all the other stuff, in all the other different display halls in the video, but the carrier experience in display hall 3, if this museum didn't have anything else, that alone would be worth coming to see.